Greetings, distinguished followers, Chosen Chimp here, continuing my quest to review every episode of this series of Doctor Who and critiquing each of these episodes by asking two simple questions. Question number one, does the episode I'm watching have a clear and consistent personality? Do you know what? I think I might have to shelf that one for this week. Yeah, alright, so introductions, hardly. It's one of the ones where the companion does all the work and the Doctor pretty much doesn't feature. And yeah, that's the introduction. Not much else I can, begin with on this. I think we're just going to have to dive straight into it. It's 73 yards, and I will tell you what I think of this episode right at the end. And in the meantime, if you haven't seen it, then this video is definitely going to wreck it for you. And you don't want it wrecked because it's a ride. Alright? You don't want to know anything. Get off the internet and then watch it. And then go back on the internet and go straight to the Chosen Chimp YouTube channel and watch this review, which will surely be the best and most well-researched. There's not even opening credits. Yeah, diving straight into it. Mr. Russell T. Not even any do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. There's no clear indication that this is even Doctor Who. Because it doesn't even say Doctor Who at the beginning. It just says 73 yards. And then it's got the names of the cast fading in like real TV. Ncuti Gatwa, first of all. Well, that's a bit of a bluff, because he's only in it for about 2 minutes. Millie Gibson, now we're talking, and here we are. It's Doctor Who, like you've never seen it before, sort of. There are components of this that have never been in Doctor Who before, to my knowledge, and boy, we will get to those. So they're in Wales. They've landed in Wales. Marvellous. Great, so they're in Wales on top of a big cliff. Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor and Millie Gibson's Ruby Sunday in their native warm clothes because they're on a Welsh mountain by the sea and it's a little bit chilly. The rocks and the water, says the Doctor. The war between land and sea. Ooh, I like that. That's very Song of Ice and Fire, that is. Ruby Sunday explains that she has been to Wales 3 times, and she mentions 2 of those times before the Doctor interrupts and mentions a one Roger ap Gwilliam, a dangerous Prime Minister somewhere in the future. I doubt that will come into play later in the episode, because clearly, as we've seen in the trailer, the majority of this is set in a small village and a bunch of creeped out locals in a pub. It's a pub story, a traditional Doctor Who pub story, like in the classics, Terror of the Zygons, The Demons, Battlefield, and others I'm probably not thinking of. A pub story. So it's not long before the Doctor steps on a bit of string, and he's very regretful of that because it breaks this lovely little threaded circle type thing with lots of chimes and toys on the ground, and he's very regretful and apologetic, and they're trying to figure out what it is, and they're pulling out envelopes and reading notes. See you later, Doc. He's gone. That's it. He's out of the episode. Done. It's a companion thing where it's just the companion doing all the stuff. And in the distance, Ruby Sunday sees what appears to be an elderly lady doing some kind of hand signal gestures of some variety. And there you go, the TARDIS is locked. She's on her own. She's in this kind of strange state where she is taking everything in her stride, sort of. She's a little bit freaked out and a little bit concerned, but kind of rolling with it as well. She takes a bit of a walk, and who does she meet whilst walking towards the nearest village on this cold, lonely mountain? It's Susan Twist, the actress. But this time she's playing a hiker, and Ruby Sunday says, "Don't I know you from Sunday somewhere?" And obviously that's a reference to her seeing this character in the Devil's Cord.
And also, of course, Space Babies and Church on Ruby Road. She was also in Wild Blue Yonder. Wake up, chimp.
Anyway, Ruby says to the hiker that if she goes up to the old woman and speaks to her, tell her that Ruby said sorry, and she doesn't really know why she's saying this. It's all just very bizarre. And obviously I'm hooked in because, as I've explained in earlier videos, this is just the kind of Doctor Who that I love. Weird and lacking in explanation for now. So the hiker goes up to the old woman, and then she screams and runs off. So Ruby reaches the village, and by the time she does so, it's night time, and she goes into a traditional Welsh pub, and the name translates to the Dead Wood. This doesn't really have any bearing on the episode, but it's still a cool name, and I love that picture of the tree. It's good. It's creepy. She goes in there, and a bunch of locals immediately stare at her, obviously not very happy about this intruder with her phone and her metropolitan ways. You know, she goes up there and orders a Coke. I'd have ordered a pint. The locals presume that Ruby is presuming that they're a gaggle of isolated, technologically backwards yokels who have no real idea of what's going on in the outside world, and boy do they have fun with that. There's a very stern landlady, a bloke, a rather cryptic old lady, and two young people. And she tries to have a conversation with each of them, and they're kind of friendly and helpful to an extent, but also kind of just a little trepidous about this newcomer that is one Ruby Sunday. And yeah, I said that they all have a bit of fun with this. Josh doesn't. He goes out and talks to the old woman because Ruby asks him to ask her if she has seen the Doctor. And when he talks to her, the same thing happens. He screams and then he runs off. So the others kind of joke about this being his wife shouting at her, and then the old lady starts quizzing her about the fact that her friend stepped on what we now know to be a fairy circle, thus breaking the string and unleashing all manner of nasties upon the village. The main one being somebody called Mad Jack. You also get this lovely bit of explanation from the old lady where she talks about how the boundary between land and sea acts as a sort of liminal space whereby the rules are suspended. She then goes on to talk about castles and how they were once occupied by the English, who ruled with terror. This community is apparently steeped in blood, but not just that, this Mad Jack fella is using the gaps between reality to carry out his wicked ways, and oh yeah, she's making it all up. Sorry, I forgot. She's trolling Ruby. They're all trolling her. Like, the foreboding, creepy knock on the door is actually the pasty delivery guy. And then when he opens up, they all start laughing, you know. And then the old lady accuses Ruby of being racist. It was a work, guys. We all got worked. The trailer to this episode was a work. This setting and these characters have pretty much nothing to do with the rest of the episode. It only takes up about, I don't know, a small percentage of what goes on in 73 Yards. We got worked. And there's all kind of stuff that we saw in the big trailer for this series that actually plays into this episode, but we had no idea of that at the time. So there you go. None of them believe in Mad Jack or fairy circles. They all just had a big giggle and chuckled at Ruby's misconception that these were all people who lived inside a culture of folklore and terror. None of them care, which is quite clever. We got worked. And then this episode continues to rib us, the audience, for some time. You see, Ruby spends a couple of nights in this pub, looking out the window and seeing this old lady the entire time from where she's sitting, and then she does what, well, you would do. She's got a bit of money on her phone, so she gets the train back to London. She was never trapped in Wales. There was no barrier like in The Demon. She just gets the train home and talks to her mum, Carla, about the problem and what she's been up to. You know, it just makes perfect sense. There, what did you expect her to do? And Carla is talking about how the Doctor treats his TARDIS like a man shed, which is a very profound bit of dialogue. I don't know how it really fits into the rest of the episode, but I'm glad it's there, because it's, you know, it's good characterization, good dialogue. Russell T at his finest. And then she offers a very clever solution. She's going to get on the blower to Ruby and then walk up to the woman with her phone and then basically communicate to Ruby what this woman says. But I don't know, Ruby dropped the ball on this because Carla gets spooked as well. She runs off. You get a cameo from Miss Flood. Go away, please. This episode is busy enough. She says something mildly cryptic about you're on a street talking to your mum on a phone a few yards away. This has got nothing to do with me. I'm sure we can look back on that and go, yeah, I forgot about Miss Flood because this Susan Twist person, who's a real actress playing characters, is turning up. So yeah, mystery and another mystery. Okay, right, just back to the story. Let's go. Carla is so spooked that she wants nothing to do with her own daughter, which is extremely sad. So much to the point that she even locks Ruby out of the house. And then we get what is presumably about a year in time lapse where Ruby has sort of adjusted to her new life and... So... a lot of you watching this hopefully probably have been following this channel for quite some time, maybe since the beginning, and I guess this is for you guys. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not saying anything, okay? I'm not going to say anything. All right, you ready? Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Waste of a good cup. I mean, in all fairness, Kate Lethbridge does come up with quite a tangible explanation for what might be happening in this episode. Cheers for that, Gordon Jr. The fact that the perception filter on the TARDIS has kind of blended with the ancient magical powers of this fairy space, and they have combined to create this anomalous event which she believes this particular timeline is tethered to, and Ruby along with it. Bring on more time lapses. Flipping heck. 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, no luck with blokes. Enjoying life, old woman still there. Exactly 73 yards. I wonder if that's a bit of a clever Stephen Moffat thing where 73 yards is for where most people, humans, their features start to go blurry. I've done no research on that, so yeah, hope I'm right. So yeah, and then we get the bombshell. Now this is where the episode gets mega juicy. This is where we see the proper introduction of politician Roger Ap Gwilliam, the man that the Doctor mentioned at the beginning of the episode, and he is spouting his political manifesto type thing on the news, and immediately Ruby knows what must be done. Now, this is an episode where the companion takes the reins and does Doctor stuff, and what is clever about this episode and what Ruby is doing here is that she is now officially ahead of the audience curve. She knows what she's about to do and the audience have no idea. Martha Jones using the countdown. Okay, maybe this isn't the first time that's happened, but it's still cool. I love it when the companions even are smarter than the audience. So begins her plan. She infiltrates the Albion political party, a party that is just about as right-wing as you can get, and this Roger ap Gwilliam fella is a very fascinating character, expertly played, not overly nefarious on the surface. He is a character unlike any we have ever seen in Doctor Who before, and yes, that does include Harold Saxon as well. There is something instantly charming and also deeply insidious about this character. I mean, just the very paraphernalia that he has about this political party. You know, I know this can't be good. And it's also been foreshadowed by the Doctor, who explains that he brought the world on the brink of nuclear something. So Ruby infiltrates the party because she knows that she must stop this Roger ap Gwilliam. And along the way, she meets a character. Oh yeah, he does the stuff on the news as well. He has an interview with news person on a news channel, and he talks about how he wants to defend the borders. The cost of living is not on his list of priorities, apparently, and coming up on this general election, yeah. Russell T, what did you think when you turned on the news this week, you smug little penguin? That he is going to win on a landslide, and he does. But during this process, we get introduced to this female character called Marty. Now, this is deep and this is interesting because Marty, through a series of exchanges between her and Ruby, and through some exchanges between Ruby and Roger ap Gwilliam, it is implied that this Marty female character has been coerced and subsequently abused by this Roger ap Gwilliam, which is a story arc unprecedented in Doctor Who. It has never been done before. To my knowledge, I kind of knew that Russell T, when he said on the BBC Breakfast interview that this series is going to be about fun, I sort of looked at him and thought, I can't hold you to this, man, because I know that there are things that you want to get off your chest, and you are going to say them. Look, this is one of those things where it's not for me at all to comment on whether this portrayal of somebody who has been abused and coerced, if I am indeed interpreting this correctly, and I'm pretty sure I am, because I haven't been in that situation myself, so it would be very audacious of me to comment from that angle. But the inclusion of this story arc, I don't think should be overlooked. I find it interesting. And it is most certainly a reflection of reality. And I don't think anybody in their right mind can say that it isn't. And that's not pertaining to politicians, or more specifically prime ministers per se. It's more about people in high positions of power and high positions of wealth, and social status, abusing that in order to abuse people. The allegations to various people in charge of companies continue to come out, and unfortunately probably will continue to come out. And now we are getting a storyline in Doctor Who where that happens. And this, for me, my immediate thought was, when my children watch this with me, it's going to serve as a good opportunity to possibly prompt them, my children, to ask the right questions as to what this actually means. And if they don't, if that element to the story kind of passes them by, then it in turn prompts me to have the right kinds of conversation with my children, if you get my drift. So, and no, you shouldn't be depending on a TV show to educate your kids on some of the more unpleasant facets of society. True. However, it's quite a good stepping stone and quite a sobering reminder. So perhaps I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here and going all serious for a minute, but I find this an interesting element to the story, and I think it serves a purpose. Personally, I think it serves a purpose being in there, but what I can't do is speak on behalf of people who have actually suffered that kind of abuse. And if I'm overstepping in that regard, I sincerely apologise. Anyway, the point is this: we all hate Roger Ap Gwilliam, and we must be encouraged to continue to hate him if he does somehow become a recurring character in later episodes. I don't know if he will or not. I have no idea. But he wants to turn the United Kingdom into an isolated nuclear fortress. A bigger, better, bolder Britain, and he intends to quite literally pull the trigger on this decision on a certain Saturday in the Cardiff Stadium, where Ruby talks to Marty, who has already suffered at the hands of William Ap Gwilliam, whatever his name is, Roger Ap Gwilliam, and it looks like she will continue to do so, which prompts an apology from Ruby for not acting sooner. Which is, I mean, that's layered, there's a lot to unpack there, but basically she is about to reveal the thing that she has been planning all this time. Simple. She's utilising this abnormal, anomalous entity that's been plaguing her since her and the Doctor landed in Wales 40 years ago. She steps back 73 yards from where Roger Ap Gwilliam is standing. She is quite literally touching grass when she has been told not to. Make of that what you will. Which, in terms of distance, because it's 73 yards, that brings the woman to stand exactly beside Gwilliam, and then she whispers in his ear. He screams and runs off. He resigns as PM. He won't explain why. When the press hound him at his front door, he can only say, "Ask her." Planet Earth saved, and she drinks to that. Skip to another 40 years and she is resting peacefully in a bed in the future, nice and relaxed. She's being looked after. It's lovely and it's sad, and yes, I almost cried. And then she goes, lights out. Oh yeah, they go see the TARDIS, don't they? And it's covered by moss and flowers, and she says that people are putting flowers down there and nobody really knows why. It's the perception filter thing, and people just love the Doctor, don't they? I guess that's how you read into that. And then, yeah, and here it is. It's the timey-wimey dibble-dobble thing. She was the old woman all along. She teleports from her bed onto the spot 73 yards away from the TARDIS, where the Doctor and Ruby step out as they did in the beginning of the episode. There it is. I mean, I didn't see it coming because I wasn't really thinking about what was going to happen. I was just enjoying the ride, but I suppose it seems pretty obvious, you know? And she says, do not step. She kind of whispers it, and Ruby hears. So the Doctor stops last second, and the whole caboodle never happens. He crouches down to the fairy circle and is relieved that he didn't break it, and then they talk about whales some more. The young Ruby that we all know and love suddenly tries to recall when was the third time, and she eventually just goes, now. And sorry, I'm just looking at my list. What was the woman actually saying to everyone to freak them out? Why did the Doctor disappear? Why couldn't Ruby get into his TARDIS? What was going on in Carla's head when she actually saw the old woman and probably realised it was her own daughter 80 years in the future? Why exactly was it 73 yards? Why, in the first instance, didn't the old woman say stop to Ruby? I suppose we can just accept timey-wimey on that one. Does this mean that Gwilliam can now start his nuclear war because it was never stopped? Am I meant to accept that I didn't know certain things? Yeah. Will we find out more later? Does Amy remember any of this? So, a lot to unpack. A real puzzle of an episode. Do you know what this reminds me of? And it's quite a blatant reminder. Who watches Black Mirror? You like Black Mirror? Anyone like Black Mirror? I love Black Mirror. Black Mirror's ace. Demon 79, which is the last episode of the last series. Great episode, completely lacking in any kind of explanation, but you are able to draw certain theories from it, so long as you have seen other Black Mirrors in the past. You can sort of piece the narrative together, sort of. And there's a future PM who's basically a Nazi. Lots of parallels there, you know. So this is interesting. It goes into a wider question about TV being an art form. And does everything need explaining for it to be good? Now, let me just stress at this point that there is a very high possibility I'm just being really stupid here, and there's something terribly, terribly blatantly obvious that I missed, that makes this a very, very easy to decipher bit of Doctor Who. But you know what? I'm gonna play ignorant on this because it's more fun. I didn't even watch Doctor Who Unleashed before I made this video because I just like the blindness of not knowing exactly how all the pieces were supposed to fit, how these little snippets that don't quite add up play into the bigger picture. The other thing that Kate Lethbridge says is that when something strange happens, you make up your own explanation, which might have been a wink wink nudge nudge to the audience. If I was a bit younger and a bit more naive watching this, I might have thought to myself, oh, they're definitely going to go back to this and explain all of it in later episodes. But now I'm thinking, maybe they won't. Maybe that was it. Maybe that was the project. Surreal, a puzzle, that kind of... who likes Twin Peaks? You watched Twin Peaks, that last series of Twin Peaks? Absolute gibberish. Complete masterpiece. So good. Wonderful, brilliant TV. Caused legions of fans to come up with ideas and read into all the little clues and piece together and just create their own narratives, and that's what it was for. It was your puzzle. I like to think of it as a TV show that just got a cold, it got a fever dream, and you know, maybe that's how I choose to interpret 73 Yards. Maybe there will be people reviewing this who just put it down to bad writing. I don't want to believe that. I choose not to believe that. I choose to make the declarative statement, drumroll, guess what? I don't think this comes as any surprise to people who have watched my reviews before. I flipping love this episode. It's great. Just the journey The art form of it, the cinematography, the pacing, the music, the dialogue, the weird quirkiness of the characters, Ruby's ability to just lock in and not constantly moan that she doesn't know what's going on. She's just going in for the ride. I love it when characters do that. This, to me, is Masterclass Doctor Who. This is the kind of stuff that I love. And I don't know if I'm missing the point. I don't know if something's gone over my head. I don't know if I'm supposed to think it's brilliant or whether I'm supposed to think it's rubbish. I don't care. I just really, really liked this ride, and that's it. It served its purpose as far as The Chosen Chimp is concerned. Am I confused? Yeah. Am I going to spend too long trying to figure out what it all meant? No. I'll just watch it a few more times and enjoy the ride. Because like I said before, the whole point of watching Doctor Who is to have fun, and if you succeeded in that, then you win. And that is it. Not a great deal more to add, I don't think. So this is after I say goodbye at the end of the video, which I'm now editing into the video earlier. I mean, that's Doctor Who for you, innit? I'm a Doctor Who YouTuber, so I'm going to mess around with time. What I did forget to mention something. It was the kind of postulation that, like Kate Lethbridge said, that the TARDIS has merged with this fairy circle to create this anomalous event, and that is the sort of paradoxical nature where it overlaps and cancels itself out, and that is how these events could have happened but didn't happen at the same time, and that in itself is a baffling mystery that we probably aren't meant to decipher, because the very nature of this fairy circle mixing in with Time Lord science creates this kind of, if you like, magic that just can't be explained. And I think this is a very clever way of allowing the audiences to suspend belief and not get their brains too caught up in what all of this actually means. At the same time, I hope they don't rely on this explanation and this trope too much in the future as a get out of jail free card to make plot lines that don't make sense, that they can then just go, yeah, well, that's the magic of new Doctor Who for you. That's why that happened. Yeah. So that is my theory, if any. Just, yeah. So, I forgot to say about commenting on the video and Patreon, please. I'm going to put it back on the table. Did this episode have a clear and consistent personality of its own? I don't know, and I don't really think that that's the point this time around. Was I entertained? Yes. This was great. I love this. Good old Doctor Who. It's back. And it's different and it's cool. Still got no idea what the identity of this series is. That's been a prevailing question that's getting bigger and bigger. Each review that I make, because all the episodes have been so drastically different. And next week, Dot and Bubble, what the heck is going on there? That looks like an entirely different episode of Black Mirror. So yeah, tune in for that, and I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. I hope you are all having a good time, to whom it may concern. I hope you are having a great bank holiday, and yeah, I've been the Chosen Chimp. Take good care of yourselves, and please, have a good one.